Hi, welcome back to Unnecessary Roughness, where we have all worn the exact same clothes we were wearing for the last show. Oh, how embarrassing. Some of you are accusing us of having to record two shows on Tuesday back-to-back because of golf tournaments that some of us have and live shows the others have on Thursday in Indianapolis, and you can't get tickets because it's all sold out. But I promise you, it is a new episode, and it's brought to you by High Noon Hard Seltzer, right, Kayce?
It is. And you know what? The golf tournament that I did or didn't go to yesterday, or maybe I went earlier in the week, I don't know, as we mentioned on the Big 12 preview, Eb was also at a golf tournament. But we're going to move it forward because we're talking about the ACC. We're talking about a lot of teams that are in or around a beach town, a lake. It's great. High noon. It's the middle of August. It's almost September. The weather is going to start to change. And Eb, as we know, high noon is good all year round. It doesn't matter if it's cold. We've got the snowbird pack. But we know when you're around a body of water and you're on the Atlantic coast, we are talking about the Atlantic Coast Conference today on the second episode, highnoonspirits.com. You get a good high noon on the Atlantic coast, you're probably happy.
Listen, Kayce, it's good on any coast. It's good on the Atlantic coast, the Pacific coast. I'm sure there's tons of other coasts that I'm not familiar with because I'm not really good at geography.
Gulf Coast. It's good on the Gulf Coast.
Yeah, I'm really just not that smart. But one thing I do know is high noon is just delicious by a body of water, whether it's an ocean, a lake, a pond. You could sit in a puddle with high noon and have a good time.
Brandon, speaking of, I saw that the Yak was on your boat. I'm jealous that Ev and I haven't gotten invited out on your boat yet.
Anybody can come ride the boat at any time. My boat was able to support 10 people when the Yak came, so I feel like it can support all of Unnecessary Roughness as well. So, am I losing weight? Yes, thank you, Kayce. I'm down 10 pounds since last month.
You look phenomenal.
So
you look great.
You didn't notice that?
Well, I haven't seen you in person.
Yeah, well, I haven't seen
When I hug you, I'll be able to tell. Once I start seeing you every single weekend, I'll really start to notice that you're losing weight. Don't worry.
Well, we're 2 weeks away from seeing each other again, so hopefully you're looking forward to that.
I am, and I'm looking forward to the college football show and having a high noon on the desk because I can only imagine how this year is going to go with Dave Portnoy being a national champion.
Likely a disgraced national champion by that time, but sure.
Yeah, sure. Okay. Either way, we're going to have high noon sitting on the desk. What is it, like season 7 of the college football show? High noon will be there. It'll be great.
All right, it's ACC today. We've done the SEC. We've done the Big 10. We've done the Big 12. We've gotten several champions, several playoff teams. We'll have to, at the end of all these conference previews, we got to put together a playoff preview to decide, which teams we should own actually might slide into the playoffs. So we'll have to figure all that out later. But today is the ACC, and I guess we don't really have spoiler alert again. We're literally recording this seconds after we recorded the Big 12 episode because our schedules just kind of ate us this week, kind of fucked us. But I'll go ahead and tell you this. We've got the ACC coming in just a second. We have Blutman coming at the end, like he did the other day. If you liked 15 minutes of Big 12 Blutman, get ready for 11 minutes of ACC Blutman. Because
you know what the best part is that we didn't listen to any of it. Like, he sent it all to Ev, both video and audio for both of the platforms, and none of us know what he picked. We still don't know what he picked. We have no, and on the SEC and the Big 10 preview, he hit all the teams that we didn't necessarily preview. We have no idea what this man has talked about. So hopefully he's covering our asses on that too.
Guys, I don't know if if when you looked at this, by the way, no news on this episode because, again, it's just whatever happens between now and Thursday is going to happen. We'll get to it later. Anyway, I don't know if this happened to you, but when doing my research for the ACC, did anybody start to twitch when you got to Cal and SMU and Stanford? Anybody's body just involuntarily try to reject this premise? Like, no, what are you doing to me? I can't do Stanford and Cal right now. Nobody. You have to get used to it. The ACC is now the All-Coast Conference. You have Stanford, you have Cal, you have SMU. You have a lot more going on than you've ever had. It's Big Ev. I don't know if
it's gross. I'll say it's gross.
If I live to 1,000 years old, I don't know if I'll ever get used to Cal and Stanford being in this conference.
I don't think you should. And I mean, especially and then you got old SMU smack dab in the middle, down in good old Texas.
Boy, you talk about a team that just absolutely hitched a ride to a major conference.
Yep.
And I'll tell you what, like Cal and Stanford are limping into this league. I think SMU's riding a fucking bull and a bronco and just yee-haw, partner, here I fucking am. Like I think they're coming in hot.
Spoiler, so do I. Let's look ahead. The fact that, like, and I know I'm not the only one that said this. Everybody said it. I've said it a million times on this podcast. We have coastal teams playing in the Atlantic Coast Conference. We have SMU, who's not on the Gulf, but pretty damn close to the Gulf of Mexico. It's like the biggest clown show put together conference, but you've got some teams in this conference that are actually, and I hate that I'm about to say this, the Coast Conference going to make some waves in the national playoff scene. I had to say it. I had to say it. Powerhouse teams, and I know we're going to talk about all of them, but it's not like the Big 12. We talked about it in the Big 12 preview. Like, if you go back and listen, like, we don't think there's a lot of teams that could represent this conference. This year, I don't know, guys. I'm feeling a little good about some of these ACC teams.
Yeah, no, I think when you're talking ACC teams, certain years you talk about certain teams first. There have been years over the past decade where most of the time you're going to need to talk about Clemson first. You just are. I'm not sure we're in that year this year. Some years, like last year, it was a Florida State time. It was time to talk about Florida State. Are they here? Are they for real? Well, yeah, they were, and they were one bad injury away from possibly winning the national title. But now, I look at the ACC, and if you put a gun to my head and said, Brandon, we can only talk about one ACC team this year, I almost think it has to be Miami. Like, Miami, people like to look at Miami, and I do think they're overrated right now at number 20 in the AP poll because it's just not time to put them there yet. Let's let them earn it. But Florida State hadn't been good over the last 5 years until last year, until the last 2 years, Until the last 2 years, they really hadn't been good. Miami's been average, but it only takes that one breakthrough year, and we know, based on past history, when Miami breaks through and gets the right talent, they can break through. And at least on paper, Big Ev, this roster looks loaded and ready to go.
Brendan, they were doing research for this, and just more and more I've looked into Miami. They're a team that, if you asked me like a month ago, I don't know how high I was. Like, obviously, listen, Cam Ward and Damian Martinez are the obvious prizes, but they brought in studs everywhere.
Yeah.
On defense. The offensive line looks good. At receiver, when they brought back Restrepo, who was a great receiver. They bring in Brown, the receiver from Houston. And I believe they brought back some other guys too. I mean, they just, on paper, it's like, why not Miami? Like, the more and the more you look at them, it's like, why not this year? Why not Miami? Why not Cristobal? They're just absolutely, they're stacked. They're as stacked as they've been in a long time.
You know, I think if last year, if Georgia Tech game hadn't happened last year and they finished with 8 wins instead of 7, and maybe they get a better bowl, maybe they're more in tune to the bowl, maybe they get to 9 wins, I don't know. But that one little colossal mess up against Georgia Tech has created this world where people think Mario Cristobal and Miami can never be good together. But I don't think that's true. And again, he just said it. But they are stacked at every single position. They are stacked at every position. Cam Ward, every year there's about 4 or 5 quarterbacks that everybody wants. Everybody's in transfer portal wants. Cam Ward was one of them. The running back from Oregon State was probably the top 3 to 5 running back in the portal. You know, he's certainly up there with Judkins and everybody else. He's phenomenal. And then he mentioned receiver, but a defensive line, like, they're loaded everywhere. The problem is it seems like Miami feels loaded most years, and it hasn't quite happened yet. So why do I believe it should happen this year, Kayce?
Well, I have to say, about a month or so ago, I asked you, are you going to do this again with Miami? Because I've been with you. I've been doing it with Tyler Van Dyke, too. I've been right along that. It's like 2 or 3 years in a row with this Mario Cristobal. They're going to do it this year. And in the Big 12 episode, when we went through the AP top 25 and we talked about who was too low, who was too high, we both mentioned Miami. You brought up, like, why are they there? I think that Ev answered this in this episode what we were looking for in last episode, and it's like, because they upgraded, it seems like, at every single position. Now, again, do I think Tyler Van Dyke is an awful quarterback? No, but he did not pan out. We know Cam Ward is really good. And then you look at what Mario Cristobal has done in the portal. He is one of those guys. You know, you talk about Lane Kiffin, you talk about different guys who go out and really, really utilize the portal. Mario Cristobal has top portal classes every single year at Miami. He goes out and he gets these guys who are like, well, yeah, they do deserve that to be there because they don't have question marks. Now, if Cam Ward doesn't pan out, fine. I just don't think that's a possibility.
Next team I'll ask about is Big Ev. It can't be ignored what happened to Florida State last year. It was unprecedented. It was unbelievable. And it was ultimately, in my opinion, right by the committee to leave a 13-0 Florida State out of the playoff simply due to the injury that happened to Jordan Travis, their starting quarterback. If Jordan Travis stayed healthy last year, I think they play for a national title and very possibly beat Michigan for the national title. Unfortunately, he didn't, and they didn't get the chance to. We don't have to rejudge that. That's all in the past. It happened. My question, Big Av, is there a possibility there's a program hangover from that happening? Because we haven't seen something like that happen to any other team, but it happened to Florida State. Is there a possibility a program hangover exists?
I think it's very possible. I'm going to go as far to say I think it's likely. And I don't think it's not as much as because of what happened in terms of like getting the raw deal. I think it's just because they lost a shit ton of talent. It's as simple as that. They lost, like, granted, they still have talent. Don't get me wrong. I don't think they're going to be some bottom feeder all of a sudden. But they just lost so much talent. I think they're downgrading at numerous positions. From quarterback, running back, wide receiver, D-line, even like I think last week I mentioned, like, Peyton's an unbelievable pass rusher. But losing Verse, losing Fisk, I mean, they still lost a ton of, like, premier guys, Keon Coleman, Benson, Jordan, like I said, Jordan Travis.
Johnny Wilson.
Wilson. I mean, yeah, both receivers. That DJ, I think, is a significant downgrade from Jordan Travis. And I just don't see how they aren't worse than they were last year. I just don't see it.
Kayce, hangover?
Yeah, I mean, I know that we're not going to have to go back and discuss this. I still do. I think it was a good decision from an entertainment standpoint, yes. But what happened last year to Florida State was an all-time snub. Like, if you go 13-0 in a Power 5 conference, I don't care how many players get hurt, you should have gotten a playoff bid. Now, we're never going to see that scenario happen again because we've now expanded to 12 teams. But if you're Florida State, you have every right to be pissed off for the rest of your life. Like, I can tell you right now, if that happened to my team, I would never let it go. And from an entertainment standpoint, it was right. Do I think there's going to be a hangover from it? No, I actually think it could be the opposite. I think that they're going to be more pissed off. The issue is, completely agree with what Ev just said. I think they're going to come in wanting to prove something. They're going to come in with like a fire into their asses and be like, look what you guys did to us last year. They should have gone out and played better in the bowl game for that scenario. The issue is they just don't have the talent that they had last year. They just don't, not even just Jordan Travis. From across the board, they are not as good. Now, Mike Norvell's still a very good coach. I really like what he has to do. So I don't think it's going to be a hangover. I think it's going to be the opposite. The problem is they don't have the talent to match that fire, in my opinion, as we go into this season.
The Clemson Tigers spent a good decade at the top of this conference, unquestioned at the top of this conference. Just every year they'd show up in the preseason, they'd be like minus 650 to win the league. Like that happened once. They have fallen off that perch. They're no longer the unquestioned top dog of this conference, but they haven't fallen far. They've just barely fallen off. Like, if there's a throne at the top of the stairs, they're still like on the top 1 or 2 stairs, and they're right there. Can they get back on that throne this year, Kayce?
I do think that they can. And I mean, when you look at, we've talked about this ad nauseum, like outside of how you feel about Dabo, like Dabo should be allowed to coach at Clemson no matter what for the rest of his life until he's ready to hang it up. Because what he turned Clemson into, they've had one non-double digit win season since like 2011, 2012. I think that, and we again talked about this in the AP Top 25 preview or review, like I think that where they are is simply based on because they're not that dynasty team anymore. But that doesn't mean that they're a bad team. They're just not competing for the national title or haven't in the last couple of years. I like Cade Klubnik. We'll talk about this in the preview. But as long as Dabo is their head coach, and I understand he's not necessarily evolving the way that a lot of these coaches are, as long as he wants to be there and he can continue to bring in the talent that he does, they're going to be fine. And I truly think that the ACC is a 3-team race, and we'll talk about all of that. Clemson will always be there as long as he's their head coach, in my opinion.
Well, actually, let me cut in there because I don't know if the ACC is a 3-team race, and I'm anxious to see Big F's thoughts on this because I do think there's a 4th team sitting there. Mm-hmm. Now, it's a team, obviously, Florida State has national championship pedigree, so does Clemson, and Miami has it in their past. NC State doesn't have any of that in the football program, but it's a solid roster, and I know for a fact, Big F, you love Grayson McCall as the quarterback.
Loves Grayson.
You think this is a 3-team race, or you think it's a 4-team race?
I think, I'll tell you what, Brandon. I think it even potentially could be 5.
SMU?
Louisville?
One more.
Virginia Tech?
Yes.
Kyron Drones. Okay.
Yes.
Okay.
But I'll save. I like NC State. I'll save it. I like NC State a lot.
Okay.
But I also love Virginia. Virginia Tech, I think, is legitimate contender this year.
And this is why what I was saying with the ACC is that in the like the last few years, and granted, like adding Stanford and Cal, like I'm sorry, who gives a shit, but like in the last, since we've been doing this podcast, Brandon, it's been like it's a one team thing. It's like, okay, well, if Clemson's not going to be there, then they're not going to represent. Then no one's going to represent the ACC in the college football playoff. Then it was the Florida State conversation: is Miami going to sneak up? There are so many teams that you can make the argument because there is a 12-team playoff that you could say, okay, like do you think that NC State's going to win the conference? I don't necessarily think that, but could you make an argument they deserve to be in a 12-team playoff? Probably, because this conference seems to be deeper than the Big 12 does to me.
All right. Well, no, I don't know if, yeah.
From a national standpoint. Like, because, I mean, again, and I'm just going back
Sure.
to what we talked about on the last episode, that, like, if you think, Kansas State, Utah, Oklahoma State, whoever you're taking, I know Ev and I are big on Utah, you're big on Kansas State. Like, I don't necessarily think that there's that much further where I could be like, I could see them in a playoff and actually win a game or two. With Clemson, Miami, Florida State. Go ahead.
I guess what I think about this conference is the first tier will continue to fight to be on the first tier. I think Miami probably joins that conversation this year with Miami, Clemson, and Florida State. The first tier is fighting to be the first tier. I think the second tier is stronger than it's been in a while in this conference. Mm-hmm. I think NC State and Virginia Tech are both strong. I like SMU coming into the league. Louisville is also a team we haven't mentioned, but I think they're going to be solid. Solid coach there. Like, I think that second unit is a bigger threat to the first unit than they've been in some years. You've had some teams pop up every now and then, like Duke beating Clemson last year and NC State beating Clemson a couple of years ago and stuff. But I do think the middle of this conference is stronger than it's been. The bottom gets kind of bottom's not great. Like Virginia's wretched and Stanford's wretched, but but I just think the middle of that conference is stronger than it's been and will probably push the top conference to being better than they've been in a while.
Which is why I think it's a deeper conference.
Let's do an ad.
Oh, well, Brandon, do you want to eat again?
Yeah, sure do.
You always love to eat. Okay, so Brandon got very excited last episode because he got to eat his Southern recipe pork rinds. We love pork rinds on this podcast. Brandon's eating the spicy dill, and like I mentioned, I got a gigantic shipment in. Brandon, I know that when we all sit around, whether we're on the airplane on the way to a college town, whether we're sitting around in the gambling cave watching games, no matter what, we're always snacking. We always be snacking. And and I, we all love to be snacking on the Southern recipe pork rinds. Listen to that crunch. Listen.
I don't know why pigskin and spicy dill are the perfect match. I love it. It's everything I ever wanted in my life. And
it's so good.
Somebody said earlier, I forget who said it, that I had lost 10 pounds due to a workout recently.
It was you.
Was it you or Big Ev or me? It was me? Okay.
It was you.
This is perfectly fine for my workouts. This is fine. Yeah, I can have this all day long.
No, I did mention it. You look fantastic. All that weight that you've lost. This is one of those like snacks that you don't have to feel super guilty about, because when you actually look at the nutrition facts, like it's like barely any carbs at all, but yet they taste like, the crunch alone makes you feel like you're eating every carb on the planet. You're not. The spicy dill, the hot honey. I had a chili and lime one the other day. They're so delicious. So when you're getting ready to stack up for your tailgate, for your game watch party, for wherever you're going, go to porkrinds.com, the Southern recipe pork rinds, friends of our podcast for the rest of the year, as they should be. Because if you can make Brandon Walker happy with that crunch while he's eating, keep the man happy. We all love to eat. Thank you to Pork Rinds, porkrinds.com.
All right, y'all ready?
Yes. By the way, it's going to sound like on YouTube and wherever you listen to and Rumble and everything else that crunch was added in. That's how good that crunch is. Like that sounded like a sound drop. Like, no, that was just Brandon eating. It's crazy.
All right. So we have a new look conference here. I guess we could, if y'all want to talk about a couple other teams, we can. But Bill O'Brien at Boston College doesn't do much for me.
It just doesn't seem real, by the way.
It doesn't seem real. It also, the Jeff Hafley thing just ended there with a fart in the wind, didn't it? Like it seems like 3 years ago that was all pointed. That was all pointed straight up. Like everything was going right, and then all of a sudden that just nothing happened.
I'm pretty sure, Brandon, on these, and I don't know exactly what year it was because they all run together, but like when we've done these preview episodes in the past, I feel like Boston College would kind of sneak up on like, could they be a surprising team? Could they be a team that that overhypes, whatever? And like he's just done. And now it's Bill O'Brien.
So it was Jerkovac. Everyone loved Phil Jerkovac.
Yeah.
that year it was well, BC's gonna they're going for it this year.
Before we dive in, I'll allow you to talk about Virginia Tech because they're probably as interesting as they've been in a while. Big F.
They're another team. I've mentioned guys that bring back they bring back 19 starters.
Yeah.
And Kyron Drones is really, really good. I mean, one of the better dual threats in the country. Year 3 with Pry. I mean, I think there's a lot to be optimistic about with this team this year. Like they're a team that I just think has a very high ceiling. I'm just really high on them. I mean, the defense should be back to that kind of old Virginia Tech defense you kind of remember with the Beamer ball and all that special teams. I just really think I just think when we talk about, I agree with you. I thought you made a great point about how that second tier of the ACC, I think it's really creeping up on I think it's almost molding into kind of just one big first tier with this conference. But I like Virginia Tech a lot this year. I think they have a lot of potential.
All right, well, let's get to the categories. We will start with the worst team in the ACC. Big Av, I'll allow you to start. Who's the worst team in the ACC?
The worst team in the ACC, Brandon, is not one of West Coast teams coming over. It's an original ACC team.
Sure is.
It's Wake Forest.
Oh.
I think it's Wake Forest.
Okay.
I think Wake Forest.
Well, they're bad, but yeah.
When I look at this roster, I just don't see much at all to get excited about. I think they are absolute dog shit. They are going to be fucking awful. It's one of those things. It's almost like it's easier to talk, have a lot of good things, make good points about good teams. It's like I don't have any because it's more. I just look at this team and I'm like, what good points can I make about them? When I'm really having a hard time to do that, I'm like, it's because this team is just absolutely god awful.
Mm-hmm.
Wake Forest.
Yeah, they're bad. They're really bad. Bottom of the conference is PU stinky.
Oh, awful.
It's PU stinky.
There's definitely a few teams that are in the running for sure.
Yeah, Kayce.
Mine is a new team, and Stanford. David Shaw retired. They're in a second year with Troy Taylor, and I don't see it's same kind of thing with what I've just said about Wake Forest. Like when I look at this team, when you look at this roster, there is just absolutely nothing that I could make an argument that looks good. Like I understand it's year 2 in a rebuild and you're going to get some talent here and there. The fact that they're on the Pacific Coast, they're going to have to travel to the Atlantic Coast. They're going to have to play games across the country. You look at it's like they have a list of everything that they need to get done. And I just don't see how in year 1 in a new conference, they're going to be able to check off any of those boxes. And you lose a coach in David Shaw, who was there for like 100 years, and you're just having to rebuild Stanford used to just be so good and so powerful. It's like they're so far away from that, and they're playing teams like Clemson, Florida State, Miami, go down the list. Stanford, PU stinks.
Yeah, mine is all.
And they have to play Notre Dame, by the way.
Why you hollering?
I'm just like, they also have to go out and play Notre Dame. That's all I'm saying.
Mine is also an ACC original, and I don't know if I guess it's original. Mine's the Duke Blue Devils. Like they had they had a nice couple of years. Mike Elko, he's now at Texas A&M. Riley Leonard, he's now at Notre Dame. They have a college football team can start 9 defensive linemen and offensive linemen, 5 OL, 4 DL. Do you know how many Duke's got coming back from their starting offensive line, defensive line?
0.
Yeah, it's 0. They're starting over at every key spot, and I do have some pork rind just absolutely fighting me right now, and I'm fighting through it because I don't care. I don't care that I'm about to cough because.
Drink some body armor. Drink some body armor. Drink some body armor. There you go.
Yeah, sorry. I think it's Duke. Like Duke every now and then will hire a coach who makes them rise to respectable, and that's what's happened. And it's happened for a while. Cutcliffe right into Elko, but I think it's over. And I think when you hire a new coach after Elko, you have to hire a good up and coming coach, somebody who can handle Duke. No, this guy is not. No, pass. Manny Diaz is not that guy. I don't think he's a good head coach. I don't think he can win at Duke. I don't think he's got the skills to win at Duke. I think they're going to be god awful. The worst team in the league will be Duke.
I know we've said PU a lot. Thank you for bringing that up. Manny Diaz as a head coach is just PU. Like that's just an absolute definition. I
don't know if he's the worst coach in the country, but I just don't think it takes a special breed of coach to win at Duke, and I don't think he is that breed of coach. I think he needs horses and horses and horses, and he's not going to have them. All right. So who? Big Ev. I hate doing this because you're going to take mine, and that's fine. Who will be the surprise team in the ACC?
The surprise team, Brandon, is going to be NC State. This is what I've been waiting for. This is who I've been waiting to talk about. This team with I mean, I can sit here and just stroke Grayson McCall all day if you'll allow me to. Day one guy, Coastal, Auburn rumors, NC State still here from a boy to a man, still here with Grayson McCall. What he's going to do is he's going to stabilize this offense, which is what they need badly, and they have weapons. Concepcion was an unbelievable weapon. They bring in some big-time transfers that I think were guys that were in, for example, like Noah Rogers from Ohio State, really talented guy. If you're not a first-round pick, you're not just kicking on the field there. He's going to come here. He's going to get in the field. He's going to play, and I think he's going to play well. They brought in Duke's running back Waters, who was really, really good. Had 2 really good seasons at Duke. I think he's going to be a very good running back there. And David Dorn, I think, is a very, very good coach. Really good coach. I think he has positioned them with this. I know they lost Peyton Wilson on defense, but the defense is still going to be very, very good. One of the better ones in the ACC. And Grayson McCall is a winner. But while he protects the ball, he's a winner. And he is going to make this offense so much more prolific and dynamic than it's been the last few years. This is a team that's poised to make a big-time run and be at the top of the ACC this year. It's NC State.
All right, NC State. I might go now because I know that me and Kayce have the same one, and I want to beat her to it. I can feel it. Every time we talked in the beginning, I know who yours is, and I know it's also mine. So I'm just going to take them.
Can we do?
No. I'm taking them off the. I'm taking them off the board. I'm taking them off the board.
We can absolutely take the same teams.
No, we can't. I'm taking them off the board.
It's SMU. SMU is the most surprising team.
SMU is the most surprising team.
Of course it is.
Well, so often teams. It's not easy to go to a new league, right? And SMU or Stanford and Cal are going to a new league. Do you think anybody at Stanford or Cal is excited to be going to the ACC? No, they just happen to be in the ACC now because their other conference fell apart and they landed there. SMU can't fucking stop talking about being in the ACC. It's the biggest thing that's ever happened to their school. They are in the ACC now. They're in a Power 5 conference. They have a metro to themselves, and they have a Power 5 conference. No longer do they have to play seasons knowing it can't go anywhere. And this is kind of an up year. They got the right coach. They got a good quarterback. 8 starters back on offense. Like, this is a team, talent-wise, it's as good as they've been in a while. Lashley's building something out there, and they're coming into a league that, like we said, good at the top, bad at the bottom. You slide them in the middle, they're either going to go up a little or down a little. I think they could go up a little because let me tell you this schedule. And I know earlier I said I'm not going to worry about schedules, but SMU is a prime example of a schedule being just perfect for a team. They start out with four non-conference games. They go to Nevada to start, then they have an FCS school. So you start off 2-0. They come home, they play BYU and TCU. They play former Big 12 teams. Obviously, anytime SMU gets a shot at TCU, it's a huge, gigantic deal. BYU, I think they can beat them. They start ACC play at home with Florida State. You think Florida State's going to be up for that game? No. Do you think SMU is going to be up for that game? It'll be the most important game in the history of the fucking school. That's how exciting they're going to be. And after that, win or lose, the first 2 games, it's FSU and at Louisville. You're 2-0, you're 0-2, you're 1-1. Doesn't really matter because they follow that up at Stanford, at Duke, Pitt at home, Boston College at home, at Virginia, and Cal. They can win out after those 2 games against Florida State and Louisville. This is a team that is solid, and they have a great schedule, and they're excited to be there. I think SMU can be a top 5 team first year in the ACC. Kayce, you have the same team?
Yeah, completely agree. And like when you look at what Rhett Lashley's offense did, and I understand it was in the AAC, and like anytime you see a group of 5 team go into a power conference, you're going to see a little bit. The issue is that your schedule, you went through it. That was like the number one thing, is how much easier their schedule is. By far the easiest ACC schedule. But they've got so many veteran guys on offense. Preston Stone hurt his leg last year, but he's going to be back. You've got a ton of veteran guys on the line. You look at the defense. So it's not even just like going into a new conference with younger guys with a great offense. Like, you've got vet guys who know how to run this offense to a T. And as you mentioned, like the SMU would make perfect sense in the Big 12, right? Just right across the Metroplex, you've got TCU in the Big 12. SMU felt left behind when TCU got taken to the Big 12, and they have been. And now they're going to go play in the ACC, and they have the talent to do it. Now, are they going to beat Florida State, Miami, Clemson in year one? No, but I think that they're going to be lingering around that middle line where you're like, God, Brett Lashley had this team ready before this year. Now they're actually going to get to be playing against a Power 4 roster week in and week out. And SMU absolutely is going to be hyped for it. And they have the talent to be it. It's not just, I'm like, oh, thank God, like the little brother gets to play with the big brother now. Like, no, they're big brother talent-wise too. They just haven't gotten to play in the big boy league yet. They're going to get to this year.
All right, we move on from surprise team to the biggest disappointment. And Big Ev's going to go first, and we're also going to have the same team here, but I will allow him to go first because I'm a classy guy. Go ahead, Big Ev.
You know what, Brandon? I don't think we're going to have this. I don't think we're going to have the same one.
Okay.
I think I know who you think I'm going to pick, and I'm going to go with someone else.
Okay, good.
I'm going to go with Clemson, Brandon. I think Clemson is going to be disappointing. The more and more I've looked into this team and just thought about this team, I remember you made the point a few weeks ago or a month ago, whatever it was, about us just kind of giving up on quarterbacks too fast and letting them develop. And I agree with that in theory and in principle. I do agree with that thought process. I just don't know if it applies to Cade Klubnik here. I don't. They lost a lot too. I think this might be the year, Brandon, where the transfer portal and all that catches up to them a little bit, and maybe they fall out of that top three in the ACC, Brandon. I think that's a real possibility here. I really, really do. And they fall into that still like at the top, but just not where they've been a staple at the top of this conference, winning this conference every year. I think they might fall. I think we're going to start to see that fall. And I really would not be surprised if they fell more in that 4, 5, 6 in this conference. I think they're going to be very disappointing and not a real true contender in this conference.
Yeah, no, it's a worthwhile. You could be very well right. I disagree with this team, with you on this team, but that's why we do these. Yeah, Clemson, very good pick. Kayce, you and I will have the same pick. Go ahead. You go ahead and take yours.
I don't know if we're going to, but I'm going to take another one of those three-headed power horses. I'm taking Florida State as the most disappointing team. And it's everything we talked about earlier. It's because obviously I do think they should have been in the playoff last year. They have the expectations to come in and to kind of prove that they deserve it. They are downgraded at every single position. And I have tried so hard in my head to make an argument, going back to what Ev just said about Cade Klubnik. Like, I think Clemson ran DJ out too quickly. I think he was fine at Oregon State. And I've been really trying all summer to say, no, DJ is that guy. He's going to go in. He's just not Jordan Travis. Then you look at across the roster and you look at what Mike Norvell has to fill after leaving last year and all these guys going to the pros, all their skill players gone, everybody in the trenches. I think Florida State fans are going to be really disappointed. And I don't think it's because of the hangover from last year for this team. I think this team's going to come out, like I said, with a fire under their asses. They just do not have the talent to return back to that conversation. So I'm taking, of the three-headed monster in the ACC, I'm taking the second one from Clemson. I'm taking Florida State. And it's nothing against Florida State. I was the one ringing the bell. I think they should have played. But, it was an elite defense last year. It's not going to be. It was an elite offense. It's not going to be. And God bless DJ, but his third school is not going to be the answer.
I don't like this.
Oh, no. Why?
Because I don't want to be – I'm fine with having one team the same as you on the graphic, but I don't want two. Florida State was obviously mine the whole time.
Well, SMU was obviously mine the whole time, and you still took it.
I didn't even know that was going to be yours. I didn't even think
that. Yes, you did. You went
at no
first.
point. At no point did I consider. At no point did I consider that you had SMU. I think it's Florida State. I think the hangover is real. I think their fans have to get over it. I think there's still an anger there within the team, the program, the fans, and I think the schedule is a little bit nastier than they need it to be. I think DJ is a massive step down from Jordan Travis. Running back will be fine. They're loaded at running back with guys that haven't done it yet. Receiver is a huge step down, gigantic step down. I know Peyton. He's already said Peyton. Peyton's a great pass rusher. Well, guess what? It's easier to be a great pass rusher when Jared Verse is over there and Fisk is in the middle. Now, when those guys are in the NFL, it's going to be a little tougher on him, and he's still going to be pretty good, but he doesn't have the elite talent around him. And schedule-wise, this is a team that even Even Memphis at home in week 3. And when
Not
you
easy.
need a pushover like Memphis, not a pushover. That's probably the favorite in the AAC. You've got Clemson coming in. You go to Notre Dame. You go to Miami. You go to SMU, who we've already said is our surprise. SMU, Florida State's a more talented team than SMU, but Florida State's not going to give a fuck. And at Notre Dame, at Miami, these are tough games. Then you got Florida at home. I don't know if Florida's going to be good or not, but
It's not easy.
I could see a 7-5 season out of Florida State. I could see a 6-6 season out of Florida State. I could see things going wrong with the wrong quarterback, and I got Florida State as my disappointing team. Yeah, I do.
I know that we all talked about the pick 6 previews. Like our guy Brett said it perfectly when he talked about Florida State, was that it's a talent drain. Like literally across the board on every aspect of the roster, they're just draining talent going into this year. And that's not meaning that they can't go out and rebuild that, because obviously it's Florida State. You're going to get good guys. But from what made that team so damn good last year, and what made that team, people like me, able to argue that, yes, obviously Jordan Travis was the main reason they were so good, but they were talented across the board. You just don't have that this year. The only thing that I can look and say, I think Mike Norvell is a very good coach. They're going to have some pieces here and there, but it's just not going to happen right back to back without lose. I mean, you lose one guy, you're not in the playoff. You lose all these guys, you're damn sure not going to get back into that conversation, especially the top 4 going into a new season.
All right, let's go ahead and do some more business before we get to our wild card team from the ACC.
Some big time business, Brandon, a longtime partner of this podcast who's now back because it's football season. We know we love to eat, and we also know that sometimes we don't want to put a lot together when we think about it. But
We got Factor back?
It's Factor. Factor is back. Factor is back for the season. Obviously, we've been talking about Factor for a long time because it is a chef-prepared fresh meal. It's never frozen. You get it sent to you in 2 minutes in the microwave. They've got lunch. They've got dinner. They've got breakfast. They've got dessert. They've got appetizers. They've got the whole thing. And you get to go on every single week, pick your menu. So many different options. You do Calorie Smart, Protein Plus, Keto. They just have so many options, Brandon. Just 2 minutes in the microwave. And during football season, we don't have time to think, but we do have time to eat Factor, don't we?
We do. But they're sometimes frozen, right?
Never frozen, always fresh. That's something that people like to, it's just like a fancy TV dinner.
No, it's not. It's not.
No, it's not. It's really not. And I know that on Surviving Barstool, and the next season will be coming out later this summer, but they showed you exactly like how good these meals are. You're talking like you can get filet, you can do pastas, you can do all of it. And Factor has been huge, especially like as a new parent having to worry about a toddler. Factor for me, like I know this man is fed and then I get to eat my Factor. So head to factormeals.com/roughness50 and use the code roughness50. You get 50% off your first box plus 20% off your next month, Brandon. That's a lot of percent off. 50 and then 20. That's promo code roughness at factormeals.com/roughness50. 50% off your first box plus 20% off your next month while your subscription is active. Make sure you use both the URL and the promo code. We love Factor. Factor makes your life easier, and it's healthy, and it's fresh, never frozen.
All right, we move on to wild card team. The wild card team of this conference could be good, could be bad, could mess up everything. Who knows? It's the wild card team. Kayce, you go first.
I'm going to kind of echo a little bit what Ev said. I'm not as high on Grayson McCall as he is, but NC State's very fascinating to me because we know how good Grayson McCall was in the Sun Belt. Moving to a big conference, moving to a power conference, like I think that he can be, and obviously I love Ev's opinion on it. But if NC State, like they're kind of, I'd put them in that like right underneath that tier of those 3 teams. But I just mentioned, like, I don't think Florida State's going to be as good. If he's as good as it looks like he's going to be, and you ride that serious momentum coming in, then like this team could wreck a lot of stuff for people at the top. Now, if he is just average and a lot of the guys around him, they don't necessarily click with him, then I think that they're still middle of the road. I don't think that they're going to be that bad. But if Grayson McCall is as good as he has looked before he got to NC State, and NC State as a whole has been a problem, this team is going to be a menace. And I think that their ceiling, I mean, their floor is maybe, 6-6, which is still not bad. But if they're good, I'm putting them to mess up, 1 or 2 team schedules close to the end of the season.
Big Ev, who's your wild card team?
So I really want to do Virginia Tech, but when I said earlier, gave my little rant on them, I don't think they truly fit it in my mind because I think they're better than being the wild card. I think they're going to be at the top. The wild card for me is SMU. Because I think it's whether are they going to have the growing pains of jumping into conference, or are they going to bring that team that was the best team in their conference last year and bring Preston Stone, let Brandon talk about earlier that Lashley's building. And if they can go in there and be that kind of same team that they were, that I agree that they could be a top 5, 6 team. Maybe I don't think that's crazy for them, but I also feel that if they do suffer from kind of the growing pains that a lot of teams have bumping up into conference, that it's not the crazy thing in the world. They could bottom out and be 10, 11, 12 in the conference. So I think truly in the grand scheme of what wild card means, I think SMU is the wild card to me.
Brandon?
When I think of wild card, I think of a lot of things, but I got a team no team has undergone a bigger makeover and infusion of excitement more than the Syracuse Orange.
Wow.
Syracuse went out and got a guy that upset the whole apple cart. Syracuse is no longer just out there trying to win 6 games, get to a bowl, and be happy doing it. They want to go out and get dudes. They want to get fucking dudes. And if I told you last year, Ohio State's starting quarterback, and I'm not talking about his quality of his play or anything. If I told you Ohio State's starting quarterback is going to transfer, you would say, okay, well, is he going to Miami? Is he going to LSU? Is he going to Alabama? Like, where's he going? He's going to Syracuse. And you don't become Ohio State's starting quarterback without having a very high ceiling. And you add a guy with a high ceiling like that. It didn't work in Columbus. I'm not going to sit here and say that it did. But he's still young. He's got a new lease on life. Exciting core being built at Syracuse. And Fran Brown's not going to sit there and say, we're Syracuse. We're not going to go after that 4-star. We're not going to go after that 5-star because it's Syracuse. They're not coming. He's going to say, guys, I've just assembled one of the best recruiting staffs. Let's fucking go get them. That might be a bigger deal in year 2, but I still like the excitement around the program in year 1. Also, their schedule, they don't play Florida State. They don't play Clemson. Like, they miss some of the big guys. They got NC State and they got Miami, but they play kind of the bottom of the ACC more than they play the top of it. Would I be shocked if I looked up and Syracuse went 8-4 in his first year? No. Would I be shocked if, because they don't really have that much talent, they went 4-8? Also, no. That's why they're the wild card to me.
But you also, you mentioned something. I know we've talked about this. Like, yeah, he wasn't the guy at Ohio State because he's clearly not there. He wasn't bad at Ohio State either. I mean, if you're looking at,
he just couldn't beat Michigan. Yeah,
right. Like, you're looking at a team where if that was a 12-team playoff, he had Ohio State right there. He couldn't beat Michigan, which is the biggest problem right now that Ohio State has. But, like, we're not talking about a guy that just absolutely stunk out loud that couldn't beat the Big Ten teams. He just couldn't beat the rival that had been beating them the years before. I mean, and Ev, you and I have talked about this. Like, if he was even a tiny bit better last year, he's still at Ohio State. So, like, the fact that, like, he couldn't beat the rival who ended up winning the national championship, by the way, like, this kid's a good quarterback. He just couldn't beat his rival.
Yeah, also, they didn't lose to him by 30. Like,
they lost him to, yeah, like,
he was 35 close. Yards away. He was 35 yards away from beating them.
Correct. Exactly. So to me, it's like, and I understand it's really easy to say, like, okay, well, and I'm still not 100% sure that Ohio State win absolutely got a massive upgrade from him, but he just couldn't. The one thing that Ohio State had to do last year, he was the starting quarterback when it didn't happen, and that's why he's not at Ohio State anymore.
He's definitely a solid player. I think he just fell into a spot where, I mean, he came in as the first year starter and just had the weight of the world on his shoulders from having to follow just 5, you could argue even like 10 really plus years of true, but I'll say 5 for surefire, like elite years of quarterback play that he had to follow. 3 Heisman finalists in a row. This team that was built to win. And he made some tough throws here and there for sure, but he's definitely not a bad quarterback at all. Definitely like he's going to be good at Syracuse.
Yeah, I think Syracuse is exactly the right landing spot for him. Right, like the lights were super bright for him in his first year. Some guys are ready for that, but it's not easy to be ready for that. And just because you're not ready for that doesn't mean your career is over or that you're not going to become ready for that. So I like the spot for him. I like the spot for the coach.
And it's also, and again, not to make this all about Ohio State, Michigan, but at the end of the day, it's not like he lost to Michigan and Michigan was some like schlep of a team. He lost to Michigan in the year they won the fucking national title. Like, it's, so that to me, and I understand, like, that's the way that Ohio State standard is, but I was shocked when he ended up at Syracuse because I was like, not that I'm saying Syracuse is some like horrible team, but like, to me, like going somewhere else that's like just right below Ohio State's tier made sense because I think that's how good of a quarterback that he could have been.
Plus, at Syracuse, I'm just not sure he's going to play a whole lot of teams that know which plays he's going to be calling. So we'll see.
Had to do it. You had to do it, didn't you?
I didn't have to do what? That's not any reference to anything. That's just that's a conversation. Mm-hmm. That's a statement that is true. All right. So now we've done our worst, we've done our surprise, we've done our disappointment, we've done our wild card. So now
can I mention a team that I don't think is going to come up, but I do think that it's worth mentioning because we talk about the ACC and we talk about like those teams that have been there, like North Carolina now without having Sam Howell and without having Drake May, and listen, I like Mac Brown, I think, but like what we've seen from North Carolina, and they've always been right there. Like, could they upset the apple cart? Like, Max Johnson for them. And like, no, I mean, he used to be with my team. That's fine. But like, to me, like, and Katie, obviously not being on the podcast, it won't hit as much, but just like the excitement that they had, I feel like is just gone. Like Max Johnson's not going to have them in that conversation, right?
Yeah, it's gone, but it also gives them a chance to retool because when they were up there and they had the quarterbacks, they had the quarterback, but they didn't have anything else, right? Yeah. They had some receivers at one point. The defense would be terrible or this would be terrible. Now they're not going to be in that marquee spot. They're not going to be playing Clemson or Florida State, and everybody's looking. Maybe it gives Mac Brown a chance to retool the whole roster and lift them up. Yeah, they're certainly, I hate to say the word also ran, but they're an also ran this year in the ACC.
I mean, yeah, to have like 5 straight years or 4 or 5 straight years of just NFL caliber quarterback. And you're right. Like they could never like push it over that hump. And poor Katie was like wanting to cry every single week because she was like, this is what happens. She hates Gene Chizik with her whole body. It just is weird. When I was sitting down to do this preview, I was like, in the last couple of years, it's like North Carolina is always like, where exactly do I slot them? And now it's like, no, like they're like, they're not bottom barrel ACC, but they're definitely closer to the bottom than they are the top, in my opinion.
All right, we go on to Player of the Year. Player of the Year in the Atlantic Coast Conference. Big Ev, who you got?
I'll say Brandon. This is probably a pretty chalk pick, but I just think everything around him and the talent-wise and his skill set is too good to not be it. I'm going with Cam Ward, Brandon. I'm going to go with Cam Ward. I think he's going to be the player there. I think the receivers he's throwing to, the offense he's going to be leading, his play personally is all going to trend, and just how good this team is going to be is going to cater itself very, very well to him coming in and being the best player of the conference right away.
Kayce?
I'm going to go completely opposite of what Ev said earlier about Clemson. I think it's going to be Cade Klubnik. And I think that, obviously we know Dabo doesn't go out in the transfer portal and get the guys they need, but a different year under a new offensive coordinator, getting those, they're always going to have talent. The offensive line is beefed up. And I really do think that we just put so much pressure on Cade Klubnik. When he took over the job from DJ, he was still a freshman. He had obviously the great game that he did against Tennessee, but I think that this team's going to rebound. And it's crazy to say like Clemson has to rebound, but I think that they're going to be back in the conversation to win the ACC, potentially be in a playoff run. And I think they're going to win the conference. And I think the quarterback on the best team after the way that we've treated Clemson. And I mean when Labor Day weekend last year, when they lost to Duke, I was like, dynasty's over. Bring Mike Elko back to A&M. Like RIP. Like their dynasty's not over, and I think this kid's pretty good, and they're always going to have talent on the defense too. So give me Cade Klubnik.
All right, I'm going to agree with one of you. I am. I'm going to agree with one of you because you're right. This quarterback is going to have a big year. He's going to have a huge year, and it's because of what's around him, the talent around him, and with the receivers that he has, with the coaching that he's going to get now at his new spot, it's going to be Cam Ward. Cam Ward.
Yep.
Cam Ward with listen, they're loaded. They're loaded, guys.
I know.
I want to deny it. They're loaded. And this isn't Tyler Van Dyke where you hope he finds something he used to have. Cam Ward's got it. Like he's got it. He's got a skill set, and he's been pulling along a team that hasn't been that good around him. And he's not going to have to do that as much this year. When he throws it, he's going to have a top-flight receiver to catch it. When he gives it, he's going to give it to a top-flight guy. When it's his turn, he's going to make moves behind a top-flight offensive line. Like, they're good enough around him. He doesn't have to be the entire team anymore. And that's exactly where somebody like him, who is good enough to be the entire team, thrives. Cam Ward's the player of the year. Here we go.
Yep, here it goes.
Here we go.
Tea and honey.
So I got Cam Ward to win the ACC Player of the Year. We move on to our champion and matchup. Well, I guess matchup and then champion through that. Big Ev, who plays for the ACC championship?
Well, I have a hot take, and I don't think it's going to be a hot take after what I've said on the podcast already, but my hot take is that I think Florida State and Clemson, neither of them will be in this game. And I would go as far to say neither of them will be in the top 3 in this conference.
Wow.
My title game, is NC State. NC State's going to make the ACC title game. And unfortunately, they're going to lose a heartbreaker, a nail biter, to just an undeniably talented team, and that's the Miami Hurricanes, Brandon. I didn't want to do this. I truly did not want to, and I have nothing against Miami. I just was like, oh, like don't buy in this. Miami's back. Like, don't buy into it. Don't get caught up in the offseason. You're excited, but they are just, the talent is just so undeniable on paper that I can't do anything else but just buy into it coming to fruition on the field. So I have Miami beating NC State in the title game.
That's interesting. That's you know what? They're loaded, and both teams are like NC State's ready to go too. And this is how basic I am.
Be basic, bitch.
I'm being basic because I preach against this exact same thing. But when it comes down to Florida State being in the mix and Clemson being in the mix and Miami being in the mix, can I see NC State surviving that? It's NC State, and it kind of holds me back. It feels like every time NC State is at this moment, they never know how to cross that bridge. Maybe they cross the bridge this time, and maybe they play for this conference title. Maybe you're right. I can't bring myself to do it, even though I respect what they're doing over there. Kayce, who's the title game?
No, I just said it. I think Clemson's going to win it. It's going to be Miami. And I said this before we started recording. I think probably even the Big 12. Like, I think the top of the ACC, like I even said in this episode, like it's a 3-horse race. Picking who was going to win this conference was the hardest of all 4 Power 5 conferences for whatever reason. And like, I don't think Florida State's going to be good, but I love Miami. Everything that we've said about Miami is true. when I look at Clemson, and I think that Dabo's time at Clemson as a whole is probably over, because I think that he's not going to want to evolve, and he's going to say like, hey, I've won. He's going to get moved to like some, forever position inside the athletic department, but they have so much talent. I like Garrett Riley. We've obviously seen what he's been able to do. And I think that ACC game is going to be really, really exciting. I still am going to take Clemson. I'm just not ready to bury this dynasty. And I said it a lot last year. Oh, I'm ready. I'm just not. I like Cade Klubnik. I know they have to rebuild a little bit on defense, but if anything, we know they're going to get these 5-star guys in. And if you're going to have a coach that's going to do it, it's going to be a guy that's won multiple national titles in a year where there's a lot of different talent in, kind of that mediocre range. But Clemson will be Clemson as long as he's there, like I've said. But it's going to be a good game against him in Miami. It is.
I feel like you're copying me.
What are you talking about?
I feel like you're copying me.
How would I copy you?
I've been talking Clemson up so much. I thought I was on my own with Clemson. I thought I claimed Clemson like 3 weeks ago.
No, you didn't. I mean, here it is right here.
I claimed Clemson like 3 weeks ago, and you never picked Clemson, and now you pick Clemson.
But I also said I couldn't pick Miami, and I have been down on Florida State. Here's the thing, Brandon. I am thousands of miles away. Maybe not thousands. I don't know exactly how far it is. How could I copy you?
You copy me. You've seen me tweeting good things about Clemson, and
I have you muted on Twitter.
You do not.
Mm-hmm.
Why would you have me muted?
I don't actually have you muted, but
I didn't think so. The best fucking follow on Twitter.
No, I don't. I just wanted to see what you had to say about it. If I was going to actually say I blocked you, but then I knew you could go check and see that. So.
I've come a long way with Miami. I do have them in the conference championship game.
You love Miami. I'm shocked you're taking Clemson.
I've come a long way in the last few months with Miami. There was a time in the offseason where I looked myself in the mirror. I said, Brennan, don't you do it. Don't you fall for Miami again. Don't fucking do it. Well, I'm falling for him again, okay? But I've fallen for Clemson harder. I think everything that people think is wrong with Dabo's approach will be proven to be right. Everybody's going out and getting the quick fix, and that's fine. It can work. It does work. It's probably going to work at Miami this year. It's worked at Ole Miss. You can do the quick fix. It works. That doesn't mean the other old way doesn't work. It doesn't mean getting a quarterback, putting him in there, taking some lumps, playing a bunch of freshmen last year, playing a great freshman class, taking some lumps. Doesn't mean you can't build those guys up and continue to build a program. I think Dabo's doing that. I think their team is loaded. The sophomore class is great. Peter Woods is great. Film off as an upgrade from Will Shipley. I can't talk much longer. I love Clemson this year. I love them as a flyer to win the national title. I love Cade Klubnik to make a big step. They beat Miami in the title game. Clemson over Miami. Coach of the year, by the way. I'll just say it right now so I don't have to talk anymore. I like Cristobal. I like Cristobal as a coach of the year.
Yeah.
You guys can say your coach of the year too.
No, mine's gonna be Cristobal. Dabo has that, like, the Nick Saban kind of thing where it's like, well, they win so much, he's not gonna be the coach of the year. Cristobal they're gonna lose in the championship game, but he's gonna have them there. So I do agree with that. I think our graphics gonna look identical, Brandon.
I think yours is gonna be Doran there, Big F.
Yeah, I'm going Dave Doran. I mean, listen, if I think he's going to get NC State to a title game, how does he not? I mean, it's one of those where obviously you could say the same thing about Miami, so I'm splitting hairs here, but I'm going David Doran. If he brings this team to a title game, if they're a 1-2 loss team, one loss in the ACC and they're in the title game, he's got to be coach of the year. So yeah, I'm going David Doran.
All right, Kayce, one more piece of business before we set Blutman up for the big finish.
Well, I was going to say, if we're going to be listening to a Blutman 11-minute long rant, who knows what this man's going to say? It's a great time to just sit back in that car that you love, that you found on cars.com. Let Blutman just serenade you, because on cars.com, you can go and pick whatever. You can go pick probably your stereo system out on cars.com, Brandon. And I know you've mentioned that your daughter is about to start driving, which is crazy. But you also want that car to be safe when they're listening to the Blutman 15, 20, 25-minute, however long it is, and cars.com can help you do that.
Well, that's great. My daughter's not allowed to listen to the Blutman 15. So that won't be happening. You don't have to worry about that. It's fine for your daughters out there, but not for mine. Yeah, cars.com, over 2 million cars at any time, 50,000 cars uploaded daily. You can't think of a car, and it won't be on cars.com. And if you're having trouble thinking of a car, like, I don't know what I want, just use the search feature. Just go look, browse, and you're going to see something like, oh, I like this, but I like this too. You're going to find that together. You're going to put together a great car. And if you need to know, I'm getting rid of my car, you need to know how much it's worth, cars.com can hook you up there too.
Yeah, track your car's value on cars.com. And like Brandon said, you can do it all right from your phone. It's like window shopping on your phone for 2 million different cars. You don't have to go to the lot. You don't have to ask a sleazy car salesman what's going on. Cars.com has it all for you. Track your car's value. Look for a new car on cars.com. And if you're allowed, play the Blutman 15, 20, 25 minutes, however long it is.
Well, that's what you're about to do if you're listening to us. So that's it for us. What we're going to do is now hand it over to Liam Blutman, who takes us home with 11 minutes about ACC football. Folks, that was unnecessary roughness. It's over as soon as he gets through talking.
I don't know what to do about this. I'm in Cincinnati. That's why I'm not on the podcast today. I know, I'm sorry. I look more red than I did last week. I looked more red than I did last 2 weeks. I made a mistake. I know. Also, the hotel room makes me look way more red than I actually am. Maybe I got sunburn after saying I don't get sunburn. I made a mistake. I need to buy a hat tomorrow. Blah, blah, blah. Don't care. HCC to talk about. That's what's important. I got notes. Not as many notes as I've had for other conferences. Is what it is. I'm going to run through my award stuff first, and then I'll talk about team stuff at the end. Yeah, we'll start with the worst team, UVA. 200-1 to win the ACC, over under of 4.5. I love Malachi Fields. Can't wait to watch him play this year and keep growing in his game. I think he has the potential to be a difference maker. 6'4", contested catch threat, consistent vertical threat, but no, don't love this team. Don't love this roster. Don't see a lot of winnable games. Don't know what else to say about that. Virginia, worst team. Disappointing team. I think I might surprise some people with this one. Maybe I don't. I don't like backing Miami. It's as simple as that. Miami, year to year, disappoints, and people I'm seeing are liking them a bit this year and trusting them. I like Cam Ward. I like watching Cam Ward play. I do not think Cam Ward has what it takes to be to take this team to win the ACC. I don't see that. Their over-under is only 8. So maybe it's tough to say they're a disappointing team, but it's not tough to say they're a disappointing team if they go 6-6. Heck, a lot of people are going to say, same old Miami, they were disappointing once again if they go 7-5. I see a lot. And you know what? We'll talk about them in the group 5 when we get there. USF, I love. I've talked about them briefly as well in other podcasts, but Miami goes on the road to play USF. I do not think that they're going to win that game. And then, Virginia Tech at Louisville, Florida State at Syracuse, and then early on at Florida. I could see all those games being losses. Not good. Not good. Not a big Mario Cristobal guy. Not a big Shannon Dawson guy. This is where I am. They're plus 400 to win the ACC, by the way. Mind-boggling. Positive note, Damari Brown. His growth is extremely important to monitor this fall. 6'2", 195 corner, big time physical tools, long arms give wide receivers trouble. I can't wait to watch him play. I think there's an NFL guy. My surprise team. My surprise team and coach of the year have tie-in, so I'll put those together for time constraints. My coach of the year is Brent Pry, and my surprise team is Virginia Tech. Over under of 8.5. The over is plus 105. They are plus 1,000 to win the ACC, and I'm gonna say this right now, folks. I do not mean this in this is no hyperbole or nothing. Every single game on Virginia Tech's schedule is winnable. They play at Miami. Miami does not have a hostile environment by any means. They play at Syracuse. Sure, Carrier Dome. Maybe it's rocking. Maybe Kyle McCord figures it out. Winnable. And then you're hosting Clemson. Those are your three toughest games. Two of them, truthfully, don't have two of them are on their own and aren't scary at all. And then you're hosting Clemson. Every single game on this schedule is winnable. It's wild. And then we're talking about you have Kyron Drones at quarterback who's going to take a massive step in his development. I liked him a lot transferring from Baylor. I liked what I saw last year. He's got a cannon, great legs, intriguing arm thanks to that dangerous deep ball. And he's got dudes at receiver. DeQuan Felton, who transferred from Norfolk State, I loved Felton in the portal last year. A lot like I liked Andrew Armstrong from A&M Commerce going to Arkansas. I loved Felton going from Norfolk State to Virginia Tech. Then Ollie Jangs, the Old Dominion transfer, dangerous in the deep ball game. Jalen Lane, also dangerous deep, but you get him the ball underneath and he's going to make a play with it. All these guys could win in numerous ways, and that's scary. And then on defense, you've got Dorian Strong, straight up baller, elite player, difference maker. I love Virginia Tech. The offensive line's going to be right. I like this team a lot. I think they'll win a lot of games. My player of the year, too, was a tough one. I was thinking about Patrick Payton at Florida State. I was thinking about Jay Anad at Cal, just producing on a really bad team. But if I'm fully buying into Virginia Tech, give me Kyron Drones too. If Virginia Tech truly does go undefeated, like I think they can, because again, every single game on the schedule is winnable. Let's take Drones to win the conference player of the year. This does mean I have Virginia Tech in the ACC championship game. Where I do have them losing to Florida State. I think Florida State could go in there with one loss, but I think they're the best team in the conference. I think they're going to get it done. Sue me. I'm excited to see freshman Cam Davis play. He is a high school quarterback that was always going to play running back in college. NFL size already at 5'10", 220. He's a tank. I'm all in on Hakeem Williams and have been since before he even stepped foot on campus at Florida State. He's already proved his worth in the run blocking game, and he's going to demand a whole lot more targets this season. Invest in him. That stock's going to be sky high soon enough. 6'2", 208. He's just a threat with remarkable athleticism. He's dangerous after a catch, fast, immaculate footwork. And like I kind of alluded to earlier, Patrick Payne, monster. I watched a lot of Florida State last year, but I watched with a lot of intent. My eyes were focused on that defensive line a lot. That front seven was nasty. I loved watching Jared Verse and Brian Fisk. Patrick Payton caught my eye every single game. Elite frame, great arm length. He's a stellar disruptor. Always makes it tough for a quarterback to throw over him. He had so many pass deflections last season. He's going to be a top 15, top 20 pick in the NFL, and he's going to have a really good career doing it. So that rounds out the ACC for me, as I've got Florida State being Virginia Tech in the title game. Some other notes I could get to. I mean, Jay and Ott, like I spoke, I've been on Ott since before he played that down in college football. One of the premier players in the country, in my opinion. He's an elite dual threat rusher and receiver who displays ridiculous contact balance and killer top speed. He is the real deal. Boston College, if anyone cares about Jarrand Bradley, sorry for misspeaking there. Highly skilled, athletic, jump ball catching menace who could break out in a big way. Donovan Ezeriaku is great. He's going to play on Sundays. Violent finisher with innate twitch. Bryqueese Brown, I bring up often just because he's the brother of Bruce Brown, who won NBA Finals. He's a gifted athlete. He's feisty as well. Clemson, I haven't spoke a word about. I love Tyler Brown. He's one of the few wide receivers at Clemson that I've taken a liking to in years past. He broke out as a true freshman last fall with 52 for 531, 4 touchdowns. Playmaker, sure hands, dangerous after a catchability that we're going to see a lot more of this season. You got Peter Woods out there with flash as an 18-year-old in the ACC trenches, bright future first round pick, future top 10 pick, powerful people mover with a lot of quickness. TJ Parker, too, another guy who proved to be a problem as a true freshman, mad quick, great footwork, lethal first step, active, strong hands. He's going to be a first rounder as well when it's all said and done. Duke, I really like the secondary with Josh Pickett, Chandler Rivers, Terry Moore, and Jalen Stinson. Intrigued to see how Malik Murphy plays at quarterback. Georgia Tech, Jackson Hollis, 6'5", 253-pounder at tight end. I think the NFL scouts are really going to take a liking to him. Sure hands, big frame, natural threat in the red zone, and very tough tackle after catch. Louisville. Chris Bell, Ja'Cory Brooks, Colin Lacey, fascinating wide receiver trio. I'm very intrigued to see how Chris Bell plays this season. Tyler Shuck is a big question mark for me. NC State, McCall, obviously very fun having him in the high level conference. Is very cool, accurate, confident. Needs a bit more arm strength than Zip on his deep ball, but he's a very smart quarterback, and he'll find ways to win. Especially it helps when you have Kevin Concepcion and Noah Rogers at wide receiver. Those two guys have unlimited potential. I love Ian White at cornerback. North Carolina, they need to find a true WR1. Pitt, I like Kenny Johnson, 6'1" wide receiver a lot. I think that this is a star breakout receiver. SMU, Preston Stone is that dude, makes throws to all areas of the field, confident and poised, underrated legs to help keep plays alive. Good old gunslinger who will play in the NFL. Stanford has a win total of 3.5. Watch Stanford, though. Medicine Hat's very own. Elic Ayomanor is a machine, big play machine, receiving plenty of NFL buzz for good reason. 6'2", 210, massive catch radius, blessed with fast churning feet that leave DBs in a cloud of dust. I'm almost done. Sorry, fellas. Late transfer from Colorado State to Syracuse was Justice Ross Simmons. I love him. I think that he could provide Syracuse with a fascinating vertical threat as long as Kyle McCord can make the throws. Also, Haronde Gadsden the second, weapon in all areas of the game. Freak athlete, highlight reel grabs all time, wide receiver, tight end, whatever. He's a football player. Wake Forest. Donovan Green, 6'2" receiver, dealt with a lot of injuries, but I think he's got NFL potential. This is a huge season for him. He takes really good strides, and that'll be it for the ACC from me. I hope I didn't go way over the time limit there or anything. I know I'm red. Sorry. Goodbye. ACC. Cool. Bye. Have fun.